I am back with some quilting videos and I am so excited. But today we are going to try something a little different. Here's the quilt I will be quilting today for you all, and I'm going to explain my thought process before I usually just slap the quilt on the Longarm machine and just start quilting. So now I always lay the quilt out just so I can see everything clearly. And I personally like to choose my thread choices first. Since this quilt has mint greens in it, I'm already drawn to go with one of my favorite thread choices, which is Glide thread in the color Seafoam. This is hands down one of my favorite colors I like to use, and it does look fantastic on white backgrounds as well. Now, usually I just take a string of thread and place the thread over a majority of the prints within the quilt just to see if it will be standing out too much or if it's also like in the same color family. Otherwise, that's it. Other colors I would use on this quilt is either like a light yellow if I wanted to blend into the white background more, or a gold if I wanted it to stand out as well in the white areas, tans, creams, warm gray browns, white. The possibilities are just about endless, but I've already made it easy for myself and picked out my favorite color. Next, I start thinking about what I am going to quilt. I'll look at the whole quilt and see this clearly is like a flying geese style. Now, it's not a true flying geese, but there are some similarities and also similar shapes. And next, I also see the fabrics within the quilt, which are forest animals, leaves, birch trees, flowers, etc., which has me thinking of forest vibes already for quilting ideas. Now, if I were to do an edge-to-edge style quilting, I would start by maybe quilting forest patterns or looking at forest patterns, bears, tree bark, flowers, etc. Then also, if I don't find anything that I particularly like, then you can always do a feather. I feel like feathers kind of go with almost everything. But we are doing custom quilting. So looking at the quilt, I do see these flying geese and I also see a mountain. And in between the mountains, I am envisioning a sun rising early in the morning. And now that I have an idea, I'll actually start drawing on the quilt to see if I like it or not. I will be bringing out my Longarm Quilting circle rulers to start drawing a sunrise in between the mountains. And I am also using an air and water soluble purple marker from Dritz, or you can also use chalk markers too, or chalk pens. They also have like a chalk pencil. You can use whatever you like. For this video, I am going to use the purple marker, so hopefully you can see this more clearly on camera since the chart markers aren't as vivid, but they are really nice to work with. Now all I'm doing is using the long arm rulers that I have and just draw the circles like a sun is rising. This is also where I am testing out how many rulers I'll be needing and also testing out how far or how much I want to make this sunrise visually go up. I could leave the quilting like this as just the lines and the curves, but I want to add some wiggles in between every other section. So that way I can create textures, illusions, and just give it some different densities. Now this is also where I saw that I should start on the outermost circle and then make my way down to the middle, since I do want my outer circle packed in. And I rather make this mistake now in the drawing phase, as I like to call it, before I start quilting it and then having to unpick stitches out later. Unpicking stitches is not fun. And now that I have my sun, I want to give it some sun rays. So luckily my block is an 8-inch block. So at the top, I'm just going to measure and mark every 1 inch. Then I'm going to use my ruler, and then using the center point of where the sun starts, I will draw a line up to my 1-inch markers. After I drew the left side, I started to like it more. So then I'll just repeat the same thing on the right side. Since I did fill in every other circle in the sun section, I'm going to do the same and fill in every other sun ray. Now, I really like the way this turned out, so I'm just going to go ahead and move on to the next block that I want to fill in. Now, if I didn't like it, then honestly, I would just try and come up with something else. And what is nice about the purple marker is that you can just lightly spray your fabric with water and it will erase quickly. Now, you do have to wait till it dries, but hey, it works. Or you can just give it some time and it will eventually disappear with air and you can just go ahead and draw again. But of course, this also has many blocks, so you can just draw one thing out and then draw something else on a different block, and then you can just pick whatever you like out of the two. Some quiltings I will just keep drawing and drawing until I've come up with something that I like. Now next I want to quilt in my mountains. Since the sun is more of a denser style of quilting, I want to keep the mountain area a little loose on the quilting. I do like a good balance of both between a quilt, and also if you saw my last video, the detailed quilting within this print actually didn't show up too well, so I don't necessarily want to put in so much effort onto something that you'll barely see. Now, would it look amazing quilted to death as well? Yes, but this is of course something you'll have to determine for yourself. And with all that said, you can see me brainstorming some ideas and bringing in other long arm rulers. I want to bring in some curves since mountains normally never have straight lines. Everything is more organic, so to speak. So this is why I wanted to add in more curves. This is also where I determined that I actually didn't have large enough long arm rulers, and I'm going to have to free motion these curves out myself. Once I have figured out what I wanted to quilt, I will then get everything ready so I can go ahead and long arm quilt it out. So let's get started. And first up, I'm going to quilt the background sun area. Now using a regular ruler, I am only using it to mark out the lines so I can follow them. So at the top, I am marking it every 1 inch and then drawing a line to the center, but not all the way down since I will be adding in the curves for the sun at the bottom. Now, special notes, do not use a regular rotary ruler for long arm quilting. It isn't thick enough. You will cause damage to your machine and also yourself, and I'm only using it to mark the lines on the quilt. Once everything is marked out, I am starting at the bottom and quilting my curves. I honestly have like a love-hate relationship with these curved rulers. I love that they are more compact, but I also hate that they are small and thin because there's not much to grab onto when they get larger, and it does make me nervous at times. But once I finish my curves, I am just going to fill in every other circle. This is real-time quilting. I did not speed this section up so you can see how fast I am really going, which really isn't fast at all. Then using a long arm straight edge, I'm going to travel on the side of the block while then creating my sun rays. Now this section I will speed it up a little bit since we are just doing straight lines. Then once I have hit the edge, I am now going to go back in and fill in every other sun rays. Now this section I will not speed it up just so you can see how fast I am quilting and how fast it kind of takes me to quilt out this area. Once I have completed the sun rays, I am just going to travel on the top area and just quilt in the ditch until I've reached the point for the next section of the quilt, which will be the mountains. Now I will be doing some free motion curves like so, and I'll just keep going, basically curving up to the top, then curving back down, and I'll be rotating on both opposite sides, the left side and the right side, just until that area is filled in. And once I have filled in all of the area, I am pretty much done. And I ended up where I needed to be for the next sun rays. And that's it. And I just keep repeating these steps over and over again until the whole quilt is completed. And here is the finished quilt. I actually just finished this late last night. And all I need to do is really add some binding and it's done. I really hope you like this style of how to quilt it and also the thought process that I go through. So please let me know down in the comments, and if you would also like to, please take a moment of time and just hit the like and subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you can be notified for your next project. But until then, I'll see you next time.